Before we dive in, viewer discretion is advised. This content is for entertainment. What happens when the ultimate Hollywood gunslinger walks into a brightly lit television studio where daytime hosts reign supreme? What happens when Clint Eastwood, a man who has stared down villains on dusty streets and outlasted the toughest of critics, suddenly finds himself face to face with a table full of talk show personalities who believe they can outwit him? It begins like any ordinary appearance. A Hollywood legend arrives ready to speak about a film, ready to share wisdom earned across decades. Yet, hidden in the shadows of the cheerful studio, a different agenda simmers. The air is charged, though most can't feel it yet. What should have been a simple conversation about art is about to transform into a clash that no one in that audience could have predicted. Clint Eastwood, a name that carries weight like thunder rolling over desert canyons. His face, carved by years of experience, instantly evokes the grit of westerns and the gravity of Oscar-winning dramas. On the other side of the stage waits Joy Behar, sharp-tongued, unflinching, and never afraid to play dirty when the cameras are live. She sees Eastwood not as a guest, but as a target. The stage is set for something explosive. The lights shine too brightly. The applause feels too loud, and every smile masks the possibility of sparks turning into fire. Viewers at home have no idea they're about to witness one of the most unforgettable confrontations in daytime television history. For now, the hosts beam as if everything is normal. Whoopi Goldberg readies her introduction with the warmth of a seasoned professional. Sarah Haynes leans forward, her eyes sparkling with admiration for the man about to sit in front of them. But somewhere to the left, Joy Behar waits with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. The man who once defined cinematic toughness walks into a studio built on gossip and banter. He's here to talk about redemption, about truth. But before long, those very words will become the weapons that decide this battle. And the question remains, when a Hollywood icon meets daytime television's most relentless provocator, who really has the power? The cameras roll, the theme music fades, and a wave of applause crashes across the studio. Whoopi Goldberg rises slightly in her chair, her voice steady and warm as she delivers the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the legendary Clint Eastwood. The audience explodes, clapping, cheering, even whistling. For a moment, the studio feels less like a talk show and more like a film premiere. And there he is, Clint Eastwood, walking in with the quiet authority of a man who doesn't need to announce himself. His steps are measured, his posture relaxed. Yet his presence alone is magnetic. He settles into his chair, weathered hands resting calmly on the armrests, eyes scanning the panel with the patience of someone who has seen it all. "Thank you for having me," he says, his growly voice carrying a weight that silences the last of the applause. Whoopi smiles, eager to set the right tone. "So Clint, tell us about your latest project. What drew you to this story?" Eastwood leans forward slightly, his gaze steady but thoughtful. "It's about second chances," he replies. "Sometimes people deserve another shot at redemption, even when the world has written them off." The audience nods, murmurs of appreciation rippling through the room. Sarah Haynes can't resist leaning closer, her voice filled with genuine admiration. "That's such a beautiful theme. At this stage in your career, how do you decide which stories you want to tell?" Eastwood answers simply without flourish. "I look for truth. Hollywood already has enough fantasy. What interests me is something real, something that says something about the human condition." His words hang in the air, resonating with the audience. For a few minutes, the conversation flows like a well-rehearsed dance. Eastwood speaks of his directing process, of guiding actors, of the lessons he's learned after decades in the business. His tone is calm, reflective, almost tender at times. The other hosts listen with respect, their questions measured, their admiration undeniable. The audience too is captivated. Phones are tucked away, breaths held, eyes fixed on the man who has shaped generations of cinema. It feels like a masterclass unfolding on live television, a glimpse into the mind of a true artist. And yet, not everyone shares the mood. Joy Behar sits back in her chair, lips curved into a smile that never quite reaches her eyes. Her hands are folded neatly, but her eyes flicker with something sharper: calculation. She hasn't spoken yet, hasn't asked a single question, but the silence around her is loaded. She is waiting. It is the calm before the storm, the quiet moment before thunder splits the sky. Every laugh, every nod, every word about redemption feels like the tightening of a bowstring. The studio, basking in Eastwood's wisdom, doesn't see the storm clouds forming just inches away. But Clint Eastwood feels it. Perhaps it's instinct. The same instinct that once helped him outdraw villains on the big screen. Perhaps it's the subtle tension in Joy's posture, the way her smile holds too long. Whatever it is, Eastwood knows something is coming. For now, though, he speaks of art, of truth, of redemption. And the audience hangs on every word, unaware that the moment Joy opens her mouth, the tone of this interview will shift forever. The conversation moves smoothly, the audience enchanted, the hosts leaning in as if Eastwood is a storyteller weaving magic right there in their studio. It feels almost sacred. The kind of moment that daytime television rarely captures. And then, without warning, the air shifts. Joy Behar straightens in her chair, the polite smile hardening into something sharper. She tilts her head, eyes glinting with mischief. "Clint," she says, suddenly slicing into the flow like a knife through silk. "Can I ask you something?" The room stiffens, her tone is different, not warm, not curious. It carries a weight everyone feels instantly. "You talk about truth and redemption. Joy continues, voice but loaded. But don't you think some of your past comments about certain political figures might contradict that message? The words hang in the air like smoke. The audience goes quiet. Sarah shifts in her seat. Whoopi shoots Joy a warning glance, but it's already too late. Clint turns slowly, his eyes narrowing just enough to signal the change. Gone is the soft-spoken artist reflecting on the beauty of redemption. In his place emerges the man audiences have seen for decades. The one whose stare alone could freeze a room. Which comments would those be, Joy? He asks, his voice calm, steady, but unmistakably edged with steel. Joy smiles almost sweetly, though the sweetness is laced with venom. Oh, you know, she replies, drawing out the words. Your support for politicians who shall remain nameless, but who've made some pretty questionable statements about women and minorities. The temperature drops, a murmur ripples through the audience. Even the crew pauses, cameras rolling, but hands frozen. Everyone senses it now. The storm has arrived. Clint's reply is even measured, but carries the weight of a man unafraid of the fight. I don't recall making any statements that disparaged women or minorities. Joy leans forward, ready to strike again. Maybe not directly, but by association, and just like that, the calm that had wrapped the studio is gone. The fire is lit. Joy presses her advantage, her voice louder now, feeding on the tension in the room. Don't you think your political endorsements send a message? She insists, eyebrows arched, the smirk on her lips, daring Clint to deny it. The other hosts shift uncomfortably. Whoopi lowers her gaze. Sarah fidgets with her note cards. None of this was in the script. Clint leans back, settling into his chair like a sheriff preparing for a duel. He fixes Joy with a stare so cold it could crack glass. When he finally speaks, his words cut clean through the silence. Young lady, he says evenly, I've been in this business since before you were born. I've worked with people of every background, every persuasion, and I judge them by their character, not their party affiliation. Joy bristles at the phrase young lady, her face tightening. Excuse me, she snaps, her voice rising. But I think I have every right to ask tough questions of my guests. And I, Clint replies, calm as ever, have every right not to answer gotcha questions from someone more interested in controversy than conversation. A sharp gasp cuts through the audience. Joy's cheeks flush crimson, but she doesn't retreat. Instead, she lunges forward verbally, her voice pitched high. Gotcha questions. I'm asking about your public statements. That's called journalism. Clint lets out a low chuckle. The kind that feels more dangerous than outright laughter. Is that what we're calling it now, journalism? In my day, that word meant research and facts, not fishing expeditions. The room goes still. Even the cameras seem to tremble. Joy's eyes blaze. Well, there was that whole empty chair thing. She fires back, the smugness in her tone impossible to miss. A flicker crosses Clint's face, but it isn't embarrassment, it's recognition and readiness. You mean, he says slowly, voice dropping. When I used a creative metaphor to make a point about accountability.
Yeah, I remember that.
What about it? Joy seizes the opening, leaning in with triumph. Don't you think it was a little, I don't know, unhinged? The silence is deafening now. The audience doesn't dare move. Crew members stand frozen as if any sound could ignite an explosion. Clint shifts forward, the steel in his voice returning with lethal precision. Joy, let me ask you something. She blinks, caught off guard. What does that have to do with just answer? Clint cuts in sharper now. How many films have you made? Joy falters. That's not the point. I'm a television host and comedian. Clint doesn't let her finish. How many films have you directed, produced, starred in? How many Academy Awards have you won? How many careers have you launched? How many stories have you told that actually mattered to people? Joy's bravado wavers. Her voice rises in defense. I entertain people every day on this show. Clint tilts his head, his eyes narrowing further. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you ambush guests and create controversy for ratings. Is that your idea of entertainment? The words slice the air like a blade. The audience doesn't cheer. They don't clap. They simply sit in stunned silence, the weight of the exchange pressing down on the studio like a storm cloud ready to burst. And in that moment, everyone knows this isn't just an interview anymore. It's war. Joy refuses to back down. Her jaw tightens. Her voice rises another notch as though sheer volume will tilt the battle in her favor. I think I have every right, she declares, eyes flashing to ask the tough questions of any guest who sits in that chair. Clint doesn't flinch. He doesn't even blink. His posture remains steady, his expression unreadable, but when he speaks, the temperature in the studio seems to drop another 10 degrees. And I, he says, voice smooth and measured, have every right not to dignify. Gotcha questions dressed up as journalism. Joy leans forward, almost out of her chair now, her voice trembling with fury. Gotcha questions. I'm holding you accountable, Clint. That's journalism. That's my job. Clint chuckles softly, a sound so quiet it cuts deeper than a shout. Is that what you're calling it now? Journalism. Because where I come from, journalism meant facts, research, integrity, not ambushing someone on live television just to stir up a headline. The audience reacts with a low murmur, sensing the weight of the accusation. Joy's face flushes crimson and she snaps back quickly, desperate to maintain control. This isn't an ambush, it's called doing my job. You've made controversial statements in the past, and I'm not going to pretend they didn't happen. Clint leans in slightly, his voice dropping to that infamous whisper that once terrified movie villains. No, Joy, you're not asking because you care about truth. You're asking because you want a viral moment. The words land like a punch. Whoopi tries to intervene, her voice cautious, almost pleading. Maybe we should shift back to the film, Clint, but Joy waves her off, her tone sharp and commanding. No, I think this is important. He can't just come on here expecting softball questions. Clint turns his gaze back to Joy, calm, deadly unshaken. I didn't come here expecting softball questions. I came here expecting real ones. There's a difference. A real question digs for understanding. What you're doing is stirring mud and calling it substance. Joy explodes, her voice pitched high, shrill with anger. You think you can come on my show and lecture me on substance? Clint's eyes flicker, the faintest glint of steel, and then he delivers the line that detonates like dynamite in the room. This isn't a show anymore, Joy. It's a circus, and you're the head clown. The gasp from the audience is audible, sharp, like a collective intake of breath after a gunshot. Even the other hosts freeze, their faces pale with shock. Joy recoils as if struck, her mouth opening and closing without sound. For a moment, she looks less like the fiery provocateur and more like someone who's just realized the ground beneath her has cracked wide open. The silence stretches, heavy and electric. Clint doesn't press further, doesn't gloat. He simply sits there. The calm eye of a storm. He's already won the first round of the Clash of Titans has begun, and everyone watching knows it's only going to escalate from here. Joy finds her footing again, her voice trembling but loud. This is my house, she declares, gripping the edge of the table as if to anchor herself. These are my rules. If you don't like the questions, you don't belong here. The words are meant to sound commanding, but the cracks are already showing. Her voice quivers, her chest rises and falls with shallow breaths, and across from her sits Clint Eastwood, unmoved, unshaken, watching her with the patience of a man who has stared down far greater storms. He doesn't reply immediately. Instead, he rises slowly from his chair, every inch of his 6-foot frame unfolding with deliberate precision. The studio air thickens. His presence towers over the panel, over the cameras, over Joy herself. He doesn't need to raise his voice. His silence alone shifts the balance of power. When he finally speaks, it's not to Joy, it's to the audience. Folks, he says, turning to face the main camera, his eyes locking on the millions watching at home. I came here today to talk about a film that matters to me, a story about redemption, about second chances. Instead, what you're watching is someone trying to score points with gotcha questions that tells you everything you need to know about what passes for television these days. The audience is frozen, hanging on his every word. Joy sputters, desperate to drag the focus back. Don't you dare, she begins. But Clint cuts her off without even turning to face her. You say this is your house, Joy, he continues, his voice calm but resonant. And maybe you're right, maybe this is your house. But take a good look at it. In your house, guests are ambushed. In your house, disagreement is treated as disrespect. In your house, creating drama matters more than creating understanding. He pauses, letting the words sink in. The silence is suffocating. Well, he finishes his tone like a final verdict. Congratulations. You've built yourself quite a house here. The audience doesn't clap, they don't dare. Instead, the silence becomes its own soundtrack. Heavier, louder, more damning than applause could ever be. Joy's hands tremble on the table. She tries to respond, her voice breaking. You can't just walk in here and talk down to me like that. But Clint is already stepping back, reclaiming control of the stage without effort. His squint, iconic and unwavering, falls on her one last time. Joy, he says softly, I don't have to talk down to you. You've already done that job yourself. The studio erupts, not in noise, but in silence so deep you can hear the faint hum of the lights overhead. The power has shifted. Clint Eastwood owns the room now. Joy is trembling now, but not from fear, from rage. Her voice rises to a near screech as she slams her palm against the table. You can't just come on my show, insult me, and walk away like nothing happened. Clint doesn't flinch, his eyes stay locked on her, calm as stone. His voice remains steady, almost quiet, but the stillness makes every word sting sharper. I didn't come here to insult anyone, Joy. I came here to talk about a film. You're the one who decided to make this about you. Joy points a finger at him, her hands shaking. Security, she blurts, the desperation in her voice impossible to ignore. Get security in here. The audience gasps. The request sounds absurd, almost comical. Clint Eastwood at 90+ years old, standing there with nothing but his words. And Joy Behar's calling for backup. Clint finally lets out a laugh, low and genuine. Security. What are they going to do? Joy, arrest me for hurting your feelings. The line lands like a whip crack. The studio audience frozen between shock and awe. Joy tries again, voice breaking. This is live television. You can't just leave because you don't like the questions. Can I? Clint replies, already unclipping his microphone. The motion is slow, deliberate, the way a gunslinger holsters his weapon after a duel. He sets the mic gently on the table and straightens his jacket. Then he turns to the camera, his eyes cutting straight through the lens to the viewers at home. Folks, I came here today as a courtesy. I wanted to share a story about redemption, about second chances. Instead, I walked into an ambush designed to go viral. That's not conversation. That's not journalism. That's just noise. The words echo in the silent studio. The other hosts sit frozen, their faces pale, their eyes darting anywhere but toward Joy. Even the crew members stand still, knowing they're witnessing something far beyond the usual chaos of daytime television. Joy tries one last time, her voice shrill. You arrogant has been. You think you can just waltz in here and tell me how to do my job? Clint stops in his tracks and turns, his expression suddenly sharper than ever. His tone is quiet, deadly precise, he repeats. That's rich coming from someone whose entire career is built on talking about other people's accomplishments. The studio gasps again, louder this time. Joy's face flushes purple, her lips trembling with fury, but no words come out. For the first time in her career, she is speechless. Clint studies her for a beat, then gives the faintest of nods, the nod of a man who knows the fight is over. Without another word, he steps toward the exit, his boots echoing softly on the studio floor. The cameras catch him in perfect profile, tall, unbroken, walking with the calm authority of every gunslinger he's ever played. No music, no fanfare, just silence in the presence of a man who knows exactly when to walk away. The doors close behind him, leaving behind stunned hosts, a gasping audience, and one humiliated Joy Behar, still clutching the table like a lifeline she can't release. For a long moment, the studio is paralyzed. No applause, no chatter, not even the rustle of audience members shifting in their seats, only silence. Heavy and suffocating, Whoopi stares down at her hands, Sarah fidgets nervously with her cards, and the crew exchanges glances as if asking the same question. Did that really just happen? Joy sits frozen, her face red, her chest heaving, her eyes darting wildly, as if searching for an escape route, but there is none. The cameras are still rolling. The audience has seen everything, and nothing she says now can erase it. In that silence, the truth is undeniable. Clint Eastwood didn't just win the exchange, he redefined it with nothing more than calm words and a steady gaze. He dismantled his opponent, exposed the hollowness of manufactured outrage, and walked away unscathed. When the dust settles, the headlines won't celebrate Joy's tough questions. They'll memorialize the day she lost control of her own stage. And they'll celebrate the man who proved that words wielded with precision are sharper than bullets. The legend of Clint Eastwood grows, and Joy Behar for once is left without a comeback.